I have a mind-blowing stat for you that's going to give a little more context to why we're having this session today. So did you know that the average tenure for an SDR is only 14 months? That's really short. When you factor in the cost of ramp and training and the time spent, SDR churn is a pain point for any sales leader. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So in this session, you're going to learn how to change that. We'll give you creative ways to keep your high-performing SDRs motivated and engaged beyond those first 12 months. We'll give you the best way to structure comp plans to drive the right behaviors, and we'll give you a little insight into how to manage that age-old question of, how do I become an AE? So I'd like to introduce you to Tito Bort.
Woo. Thanks everyone for coming. This is incredibly exciting. I've been supportive of Outreach for a long time, and the reason for that is that it's changed how I operate my teams and how I work with them. Question for the audience: how many of you have heard of me or any of my content, maybe through LinkedIn? Raise your hands. Okay, awesome. 20% of the audience. That's great, because I do have a little bit of background here. And I'm going to steal some of the energy from Michael Savage. So I want you guys to participate and make this an exciting talk. As any good sales rep, I have an agenda. Not going to go through it. There you go. Have it on the screen. But that's what the talk is. That's how it's going to flow. So a little bit of my story and how I got started and why you should listen to me and some of the advice I might have for you and your teams today. In 2011, I come up with a business idea to start a remote sales development teams in Latin America, hiring SDRs in the US, fly them down, have them work from Costa Rica, prospecting into the US because it's cheaper and more fun. The CEO of the company that I pitched this to, and I was in college, says, that sounds like a great idea, you should start it, go run it. So I quit college, I fly down to Bolivia, I get on the phone and I start making 120 calls a day. For a year, 2012, I'm an SDR. 2013, I'm managing 8 people. 2014, I have 15 people. 2015, we're up to 27 reps. And I only have one client, the same one that we started with, running this company, multi-million-dollar contract. Suddenly, company restructures, they lay off 40% of their workforce, and that also means that we get shut down. So I moved to Silicon Valley, I started working as an AE, and I was closing a lot of deals just because I knew how to prospect so much better. Didn't like the company, move away from there, start as chief of staff, which meant I was doing all the operations and all the data behind how to run a sales development organization. I was employee number 4, and I grew that team all the way to 38. Not me, but my boss was the genius mind behind this. And finally, in 2017, I run a company that does essentially SDR amplification, everywhere from you have no team, we're going to build it for you, to we have a huge team, we want to send people to Costa Rica, to the in-between, I need some senior SDRs to prove the model or improve our internal operations. Here's what this talk is not about. This is not about what employees deserve or don't deserve. It's not about how millennials operate and if they're entitled or not, right? Here's what this talk is about, which is, given the world that we live in today, and there's a lot of assumptions there that might or might not be true, how do we run a successful sales team, right? So I have a survey for the audience here, and I want you to participate. Who knows 10 account executives in your lives that have been in their role for 5+ years, enjoy it, and are proud of it? Say, I. Bunch of people, okay? Who knows people who want to be AEs, let's say for life or for a very long time? Like their career path is, I'm just going to be an account executive. Say I. Awesome. Let's answer those same questions for the SDR. Who knows SDRs who want to be SDR? And you already know where this is going. SDRs don't tend to want to be SDRs for 5 years. And I've met few, if any, SDRs that say, I want to be an SDR for life. And I think I have a strong theory for why this is the case, because this is the old VO sales, right? Everybody's compensated on cash received. The VP of sales comes to you as an AE and you're like, oh yeah, there's lots of interest. I have a great pipeline. If you miss quota, you're out. That's how it used to work 20 years ago. Tends to still work like that most of the time. So it's an individual sport, it's full sales cycle, right? And pipeline used to be an excuse. So that there's lots of interest, doesn't work there. What has that created? You might be familiar with something like this. But it's you know, the leads are weak. It's that scene, if you remember that, where the sales reps are complaining that the pipeline coming in is not good enough, and that's why they can't close it. And essentially, the AEs get blamed for it. So it's all about the account executive role. And essentially, the mentality that has developed is that it's closing is more important than the pipeline, which means that there's glorified AEs. Revenue is the primary thing that we're looking at. There's no respect or pride in pipeline. There's no respect or pride in being an SDR, and you're essentially an AE assistant. And I know plenty of teams that still treat their SDRs as just an assistant to the AE in many different capacities. So that inevitably turns into promotion as the ultimate goal and low pay for SDRs. However, sales has changed, and it's changed significantly since the introduction of CRMs like Salesforce and cool technologies like Outreach. Now we have multiple employees working on a deal. We have marketing passing it to SDRs, SDRs passing it to account executives passing it to sales engineers passing it back to account executives, getting approval from finance, now back to delivery, off to customer support. It's a team sport, yet we're still compensating AEs much better than everybody else, right? We have pipeline stages, we have deal attribution, and we have data-driven insights.
Disappointing on this is where Rotherham do have the pass.
SDR to AE. AE grabs the ball. Passes it to sales engineering. Sales engineering moves the deal forward. Off to finance. Finance gets approval, VP of sales, and scores.
How about that?
Right? Welcome to the new sales, right? And this is what Outreach is talking about. If you're in the session here before, is how is everybody on your team now going to use Outreach and not just your SDRs? So, given that, and given the new view of sales, here's how I'm thinking about it. I don't see any quarterbacks wanting to be, receivers. I don't see midfielders wanting to be strikers. Why do SDRs want to be AEs? It's not them, it's you. Why do I say that? Well, here's a few facts about the SDR role. I've been working with SDRs for a very long time. I have SDRs who have been with my team for 4 years, and they love it. And we've structured the team in a way we have SDRs who want to stay with us longer and who are being super successful in how they execute their tasks and their campaigns, and they love their role. Unfortunately, salaries haven't adapted. If you look at San Francisco salary data and quota achievement, the average SDR is making 70K. And if you look at the statistics of cost of living, you need 80K to survive in San Francisco. Therefore, you need about 140% of quota to survive, which totally sucks. Yet, if you become a junior AE, your base salary is now 65 to 70, and with 15% of quota, you can survive by yourself, which is pretty easy to do because it's like 15% of quota, everybody's there, right? And as a senior AE, you make so much more money. Moreover, the biggest problem is that 87% of SDRs I've interviewed, and I run a few surveys on LinkedIn over the past couple of weeks before this presentation, say that they're making less money than they expected when they were offered the role. Hey, you just graduated college, and we always told you that the minimum performance you need is a C-, and then you pass the class. Welcome to sales. Your OTE is 80K, and that's the minimum we want you to hit. So now the SDR comes into the role thinking that a C- equals 80K, and if he works hard, he'll make 100K. But actually what happens? 50, 60% of your team is not hitting quota as an SDR, and therefore this is how they feel, right? If you could deliver on your promises, that'd be great, right? Another big problem with the SDR role, there's few experts leading SDRs, and it's because it's a new role as well, right? 77% of the people I interviewed said that they don't believe their manager can do the SDR role better than them. That's concerning, right? And this is how they feel about it, right? Hey, man, can you go set up a meeting, right? And make more calls. That won't work, and that won't create retention. That won't create happiness with your team. There's no recognition or praise, right? 96% of the SDRs I talked to said that their work is less value than the AE work. Is that not true? It's always true, right? AE closes a big deal, email gets out to the whole department, everybody celebrates, CEO gives them a high five. I haven't seen stuff like that for SDRs, right? Who's familiar with this one? The SDR asked how do I qualify for President's Club? You kidding me? I literally meet up with a lot of VPs of sales, and their debates is, are we going to allow our SDRs to go to President's Club? Immediately tells me you disrespect their role. And then you're like, why are my SDRs leaving the company within 8 months? Are you kidding me? Of course they're leaving the company within 8 months, because you don't respect their role, because you don't enable them, you don't train them, you don't give them cool perks, you don't do any of that. Finally, no respect for pipeline, right? They're treated as assistants. And ultimately, here's why they leave. What if I told you, if you can get an assistant now, Mr. SDR, I'll promote you, I'll give you a better salary, I'll give you better recognition, I'll give you an SDR to book meetings for you, and now you can be a closer. Who wouldn't take that deal? Anybody would take that deal, right? So here's why I think we need to fix this and how we fix this internally. A lot of companies, when they look at the performance of their SDRs, there's vast differences, much more than within the AE role. Within the AE role, your best AE is maybe closing twice as much as your average AE. In the SDR roles, I've seen things like 3 to 5 times more pipeline that's closing good quality meetings. And I talked to a company that says, one SDR was producing 3 to 5x compared to his peers, so we let go of 80% of the team. And then you're dead, because if you're building a highly successful, hyper-scaling company, if you're going to be the next outreach, if you are going for that IPO, which we've celebrated throughout the conference with Manny acknowledging those companies, then you need to think about it differently. Let me tell you a little bit more about how we do this in-house. And there's 6 core principles that I want to talk about. And those core principles are, you got to set expectations, you got to earn respect, you got to train, enable, manage, and coach like no other. You got to create a promotion path. You got to make their jobs sustainable and fun. And you got to show them the path to big money. So set expectations. Here's what I hear in Silicon Valley a lot, right? Hey, look at all the money, look at all the perks, look at all the fun, look at all the funding. We're awesome. This is the best place you can go to. And then, hey, you don't even hit your OTE. And we overpromise and underdeliver, which is the worst thing you can ever do if you're striving for success. How do we do it internally? We sell the SDRs on climbing Mount Everest. We say, this is not going to be a walk in the park. It's freaking hard. But there's going to be a lot of rewards from learning how to engage a C-level executive and learning the motions of how to open the door for yourself and for the company to any opportunity. Interview question. How are you going to stay fresh making 120 calls a day, Mike? I'm actually, damn. I don't know, I'm going to go to the gym every night. Okay, fantastic. Expectations are set. Right? We're doing mock calls during the interview process with their managers, so they understand that the manager that's going to be overseeing their work really knows how to do the same motions. They know how to cold call, they know how to send those emails, they know how to personalize, make it better. And then we always talk about ROTI, return on time invested. You got to be committed as an SDR that if you join this organization, the time that you're going to be investing in this organization is the best way that you could spend the next 2 years of your life. And if we can commit to that, we're going to work on this together. I'm going to train you, I'm going to enable you, I'm going to coach you, I'm going to help you, you're going to get better. You're going to have a better career from now on because you're under our leadership. And we ask you the same level of commitment. Though, you got to earn their respect. They need to believe that their manager can teach them something. They need to believe that they need to feel like they're respected and they're part of the team. They need to have a sense that you delivering your promises on your OTE, on your training expectations, on how you treat them. And finally, they got to feel that management is invested in their success. And we do this through some different ways that I'll get a little bit deeper into. So train, enable, manage, and coach. Some strategies, and I'll run through these points a little bit quicker so we can get to Q&A too. But, weekly call recordings, a mock call with your reps, right? Is your trainer or your manager able to tell them the strategies they need to run with? Some of the people who have raised their hand when I talked about my content, you might have stumbled upon some of the cold calling trainings that I do freely on LinkedIn to reps of other companies. So you understand that. We enable, and enabling means eliminate, automate, delegate, do mentality. Meaning, don't let anybody do anything that they can delegate to a person with lower skills. Don't let anybody delegate if they can automate, and don't automate if you can just eliminate, right? So for example, our SDRs don't do any data research. Zero. They're never finding contact information or personalization techniques. We have a dedicated team abroad that spends all the time finding those emails and those phone numbers. And it's not like we don't enable that team. That team is using ZoomInfo and Discover.org and LeadIQ and technology to find it, but we're deriving the tasks to the minimum skill necessary so that those tasks can be accomplished. And then we manage and coach like no other team. We'll have structured and unstructured meetings, structured one-on-ones. We're asking them about their metrics, ratings, leads, rebooks, forecasts, and any questions that they might have. So now our team feels empowered every week to bring up all the things they need to learn about, and they feel like they're getting better every week. We have a promotion path, and this is fundamental to the success of the company, which is we have 4 levels of SDR. Apprentice, you have no control and no opinion. That's how you start. Mr. recent college grad who thinks he knows the world, I was there too, I completely understand. But ROTI, return on time invested, give me 3 months. 3 months, don't bring me ideas yet, just do the things I'm asking you to do. Go execute on those sequences, follow the cold calling script or the call flow I'm giving you. And then after 3 months, we want to hear your ideas. Go do online training from Joan Barrows, go do HubSpot training, go find some books that you can read about this, go read different things, come up with ideas. Here's the deal. Once you get to a team member position, if you bring up an idea, if you give us a template that works better than our internal template that we just used on the sequence you were executing on, $200 for you. How do we measure that? Meetings booked, right? If you're just here in the previous session, they were talking about kind of vanity metrics, right? It's not response rates, it's not open rates, it's meetings booked through this template. And we're gonna reward them for it. 6 to 8 months later, they get promoted, leadership contributor. You can do whatever you want now. You don't need permission to test new templates. You don't need to ask us about new call flows. You're free to do whatever you want. And if you still find improvements, we'll still give you rewards for it. And finally, once you're off to your next role, if you want to become an AE or marketing or customer success, what we're going to have you do is we give you quota relief. We're going to start enabling you to become part of that team, but we're not going to call you a team lead. And the reason we're calling you a team lead is because if you're still spending 50 to 80% of your time in the SDR role and you're a team lead, the rest of your peers, there's this weird conflict of like, are you now my boss? Are you not my boss? Are we still on the same page? Or do I need to respect you more? And it creates a weird dynamic. When you start calling them an assistant, he's an AE assistant. He's now still part of the team, even though he's working towards their promotion as an AE. Finally, unlimited education budget. And this can only work at a company where another of your core values might be common sense, like ours, right? So we let all our SDRs do unlimited education budget, but if you buy a first-class plane ticket to London to go to a conference, and you think that's okay, well, your unlimited education budget's gonna now have a constraint to have to ask for permission. But if you wanna go buy a couple books and you wanna do some online training and you wanna spend $100 here and there, that's completely fine. Go educate yourself, get yourself better. We're gonna get you to be better too. We're all working towards your ROTI, return on time invested, is gonna be maximized while you work with us. Make their job sustainable and fun, right? We do quarterly SDR President's Club. The opposite of everybody else. Everybody does it yearly, and SDRs might or might not qualify. We fly our reps to Cancun, Mexico, every 3 months. We don't stay at the Ritz-Carlton. We don't throw money at it like crazy. We actually go very low budget. 3-star hotels. No more than $100 a night. You're going to have a roommate while you're in that hotel, by the way. They don't care. They're 23, 25, whatever. Or we might, set them up in whatever way is comfortable for them. We're also not going to force everybody to have a roommate, but you get the idea. They understand that this is a scrappy thing we're doing. We're going to do a steak dinner. We're going to do champagne. We're going to give him SDR quarter of best SDR of the quarter or great SDR Q1. Play, and they do some sort of adventure sport. That might be scuba diving, whitewater rafting, bungee jumping, something that excites them. And if you're like most organizations where the people you're hiring are in their early 20s, and some of them are career transitioning, you're gonna see a lot of excitement around initiatives like this, where most of the 20-year-old people that I know of are either saving money to pay student loans or saving money so they can pay for their next vacation and go to Cancun. This is also an amazing recruitment strategy, by the way. You wouldn't imagine how many reps within our company have all their friends asking them, what were you just doing in Cancun? Aren't you working? Well, my company paid for this. You should come work with us too. I get a referral fee as well. So apply, right? Makes it really exciting. Weekly feedback in person, public praise when appropriate. No one controls your hours. A lot of our SDRs are remote. We hire mostly senior people. But we do check all their weekly results through outreach. And we have the platform there to orient us in the number of calls, in the number of demos, in the number of emails sent, and so on. So it's really easy to manage the team. And finally, we have a very important psychological reason not to do spiffs that involve money. I do not give him $50, $30, $10 for stuff. Because if you look at the research behind motivation and psychology, and that's where my college degree comes in. If anybody knows Dan Ariely, I work directly under Dan Ariely. There's a great book called Payoff that I recommend everybody buys. And it tells you that if you incentivize with cash incentives, there's a short-term incentive to go execute on something, but very soon, as soon as you take the reward away, when it was monetarily, performance drops again, and they're just doing nothing waiting for the next economic reward. Well, if you reward them with a bottle of wine, a trip, a ticket to a game, or things like that, it's so much more engaging. It's the difference between a social and economic transaction. It's the same thing when you go to your in-laws. If you bring a bottle of wine, you're like, hey, thanks for dinner. Here's a nice bottle of wine. They're like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. If you go and you're like, here's a bottle of wine, by the way, it was $27, throws them off, right? So same way to think about your SDRs. Finally, showing the path to big money. All right, and you need to compensate differently. So we communicate via different means. WhatsApp groups is one of the ways that we communicate because we have so many employees in different locations. So, people just helping each other out and celebrating their success. And here is here's our compensation for SDR in the Bay Area. I have an SDR in the Bay Area. This is how it works for him. We adapt this to different locations. I don't think you should pay everybody the same. Your company is going to kill you if you do. But $60K base, if they hit the number of meetings that they need, they're going to be at $90K. We give them a slight portion. This is mostly outbound reps, a small portion of the deals they're closing. So they should be at around $110K. And then the highest earner should be at about $190K. Now this sounds sometimes like a lot of money, but when you have a promotion path and you're training them and you enable them, and you understand that your best SDR is going to be making 3 to 5x or getting 3 to 5x the results of your entry-level SDR, what's preventing you from paying that person 3 to 5x what they're making? You're already saving the money in all the training, in the management ratios, in the tools, in the office space. Keep that to yourself, but go and do pay them more than anybody else. You'll see them stay longer. The results of these 6 principles is that they love their job. And the result of their Instagram is going to be something like this. All their friends want to come work with you. They stay with you longer. We have SDRs who have been with us for 4 years, and they never want to leave, and they never want to become AEs. If they do, we have a path. But if they don't, they love being SDRs, and why wouldn't we keep them there? Right? I won't spend too much time here on the slides, but because we're running out of time. But my thought is that if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your business. And I think the SDR role is the most important role for building a high-growth company. It will enable your AEs to close all the deals they need. So go ahead and do that. Final thoughts here. Number 1, come on. If you have, I started thinking about building an SDR leadership certification. Talk to a lot of SDR leaders. If that's something that's remotely interested, I love feedback about that. And starting and teaching people how to think this way and how to structure companies this way or teams this way. Number 2, you should follow me on LinkedIn because I put some content out there. It's not salesy. It's awesome. Hopefully you get a lot of value. Again, I'm Tito Bort. That's how you spell it. And third thing, be very afraid. We're hiring. So if your SDRs are here, close your eyes. And finally, just thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Cool. Happy to take questions about any of these things or any other things that you might have seen online. So yeah, first here. Yeah, gifting your reps cool things. And it's so complicated to know who's going to like what. What if you give them a game to like a baseball game and they hate baseball, right? So the way we think about it is don't just pre-buy the thing. Say, hey, there's a cool reward. You can create categories. Category 1, your best reward. Category 2, medium reward. Category 3, an okay reward. And then just like your SDRs are prospecting and figuring out what ticks your prospects, have them talk to each other and figure out what ticks this person or that other person. And then have budgets for it. So if this guy likes scuba diving and that guy likes swimming with dolphins, don't just be like, okay, everybody, like the reward skydiving, right? Just say, he won number 1 reward, our budget for that's $200, let's grab that. You like scuba diving, and we don't give you the cash. We have the team say, he loves scuba diving. Now that he won, let's go buy that scuba diving thing, give it to him, right? And you crowdsource with your team, and they're all excited. It creates a better team dynamic because they're learning about the things that they like. They're becoming better friends. So that's an interesting idea. Somebody else, we had somebody over here, yeah. How do you convince executives at the companies that this is a team sport? I don't have the right answer to that because I run the company and I'm convinced that that's the case. But they're, like, the smartest people out there are saying this, like, go to conferences, right? Talk to the right people. I'm in Silicon Valley and I'm lucky to know some great leaders out there that will tell you the hardest part of getting a meeting, the hardest part of closing a deal is getting the right meeting, right? If you book the right meeting with the right person at the right company, your chance of closing that deal is huge. So you have to have this mentality that pipeline generation is really important. And I have tons of stories. When I was at Reputation.com working as an AE, right, I came in and look at the client list and I see that our biggest clients paying over 100K are either apartment management or storage companies. And then I build a list of only apartment management and storage companies. And these guys do like ratings and reviews and things like that. So helping individual locations get a better reputation. And then I went after those specific companies, and in the public storage, the third biggest company had 580 locations. We had never talked to them. I convinced the VP to give me that account. It took me 2 weeks to set up a meeting with the VP of marketing, and then we closed that deal for 172K in like 2 months. While all the other AEs and all the other reps were working on these 10 to 15K deals that were taking 6 months trying to educate the market because they were blasting out emails to anyone. They weren't being strategic. So it's a little bit of storytelling. It's a little bit of understanding your market. It's a little bit of looking at your client list. It's a little bit of, it takes a lot of work. So I don't have a silver bullet, but hopefully some of those ideas and telling stories might help. Questions? Yeah, so for those that didn't hear the question, how do you compensate the SDRs? What do you compensate them on? I think above the base, right? So you have the base. What we do is, because we're sourcing every account that they're going to go after, we know the accounts are qualified. So if the demo gets performed, if the AE actually takes a meeting with this person, they're getting an incentive for that. If they go beyond quota, their incentive on a per meeting basis is much higher. They also have a small kicker for the meetings closing into revenue and becoming clients. And that, to give you some ranges, depending on the type of accounts you're going after and average deal sizes, we compensate everywhere from like $75 per meeting performed in the lower level. And then in the upper level, it can go to up to $600 per meeting performed, right? And then that accelerates by 2.5x. So at the biggest end, you might be getting $1,500 bonus for setting up a meeting when you're over quota. Same with a percentage of the account closed. Ranges from 1% all the way up to 4 to 5% sometimes, depending on how it's structured. We'd have to look at your team metrics and sales cycles, LTV to CAC ratios. There's a lot of things to think about. You got to work with finance to figure that out. Yes. How many meetings are appropriate per month? I'll give you the two extremes, right? I've talked to companies like Degreed or Docebo that are selling 300K annual recurrent revenue, replacing old LMS systems. Literally the number of qualified opportunities per month per rep is 2. I've also worked with a company like ShareFile, division of Citrix, where the number of qualified opportunities they need to set is around 60. So the range is gigantic. Here's, and if you go Google how to set SDR goals, and you're good with math or you want to spend the time, I wrote an article for Sales Hacker that goes into detail about how you build your compensation system to match a 12-month CAC payback period. And that's a very important metric for investors. If you bring that up to your CRO or to your CEO or head of finance, they'll understand that. And it does all the back of the envelope math, and then it has Excel sheet that will help you exactly figure out how many qualified opportunities you need for you to be able to be successful and build a sustainable team. Yes?
On your doc there, you said that you don't have the SDRs adhere to any hours. Are your SDRs salaried or are they hourly?
100% salaried. We don't care about the hours, but we have a very important core value that's common sense, right? If you have 0 meetings, we're 3 weeks into the month and you're not showing up to work, you're out, type of thing, right? Oh, if they're hourly, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to set that up. I recommend having your employees salaried. But, it's not something you can change, perhaps in your role. But yeah, in our case, they're salaried. Any other questions? Yes? Yeah, how do you split outbound and inbound? How do you compensate for that? What are the motions, right? So different people are drawing the line of inbound versus outbound in different places. Trade show scans, inbound or outbound, right? Half of the people are going to be like, well, if you reach out to them within a week, then it's inbound. If not, it's outbound. The way we think about it is that inbound, we consider only things that are time sensitive. Meaning, somebody sends a demo request, somebody's on your chat, somebody is, a pricing request, things like that where you need to get immediately to the client. There we don't compensate on meeting set at all because it's a marketing job. That's a marketing source lead. We will look at that SDR's performance according to their time to respond on those leads. And we always split inbound and outbound. Because inbound is a role where you got to be constantly distracted by the incoming things that are pinging you and you need to react quickly. While outbound is a lot about strategizing, setting up yourself for success and driving outwards. And you can take a couple hour break and there's nothing necessarily urgent usually. So, and we're still going to compensate on the outbound team if they're reaching out to somebody outbound and they come inbound type of thing. So you got to build an SLA. But yeah, I think teams should definitely be split. Don't have all your SDRs own their territories inbound because as you're doing the outbound motions, you get distracted and that mental distraction is very disruptive. There's a really good book called Flow by, I think it's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, that talks about task switching and how disruptive that is to just doing good work. Cool. More questions here, sure.
What's your perspective on commission percentage for SDRs, so having them actually have a piece of the win on the deal?
I love having, if they're outbound, I think they should definitely have a portion of the deal because if you compensate them equally on the meetings performed, they just want to go for the easiest one. So that means they're not going for the juiciest or the best clients, right? So if you define your ideal customer profile, right, and a lot of people don't, everybody throws all these naming conventions like ideal customer profile, they don't deeply understand it, right? So when I think about ideal customer profile, I think there is the universe of accounts you can go after, everybody who's a potential client of yours, and that's your target addressable market. And then there are specific things that make a customer more appealing to you. It might be a specific industry that you serve the best. It might be a specific size of company that benefits from you the most. It might be, something else, specific role, some other specific technology that they use. And the combination of those makes this a very appealing client. That's your ideal customer profile. Usually, when an ideal customer profile comes to you, they look at our, like I'm an ideal customer profile maybe in some regard for a company like Outreach, because I look at it and I'm like, this is so cheap. I'm getting so much value from what I'm paying. I'm getting 100x my investment. So try to figure out what types of companies, what types of people, what types of roles would get 100x return on their investment with you, who gets the most value, and go after them when you go outbound. Because when they see it, they're going to want to buy it, and they're going to want to buy it quicker than most other people. And do give the SDRs an incentive to be able to do that. 30%? 30% of their variable tied to that. The way I think about it is if you go back to the slide, and you'll be able to see it later, where I have the base what I call the SDR quota, and I have my CFO quota. And the reason that I have two quotas, which is very strange for most companies, is that your CFO will come tell you, if 70% of the reps are hitting that quota, we need to increase the quota. And that's going to hurt you and your retention and your SDRs, because then they're like, what do you mean you're setting me with impossible goals where if half the team is succeeding, half my class didn't fail in college. You're setting me up for failure. You're not a leader. That's how they feel. You can't do anything about their feelings, right? So I have my CFO quota where 50% of my team is hitting that. But then when I'm hiring SDRs, I'm like, here's your quota. And 80 or 90% of your SDRs should be there so that the 10% that's failing really feels like it's not you who lied and cheated and set them up for failure, but it's they weren't able to perform as well as the team. And the majority of the people have bought into your system, mentality, methodology, training systems and all that, and they've been able to perform and earn the money that they were told they would earn. So they feel like they can trust you, which is very important. Cool, this was so much fun. There's more questions. One more minute, one more question back there. Yeah, if you only sell enterprise products, how do you get SDRs, their promotion to the AE role? It's difficult, yet some of the companies that have enterprise reps like Salesforce, and you see how they work with SDRs, sometimes they have the SDR be an assistant to them and help them out not only with setting up the meeting, but a lot of the other motions, and they shadow them for a long time. So that might mean that they're going online and looking at financial statements for the company, they're looking at how the stock performs, they're really doing an in-depth analysis of the accounts of how you actually sell enterprise. They have them shadow the AE, they go to the conference, they go to some meetings. So it is at that point where you're at that quota relief, where you're a leadership contributor, you get to the next step, you're an assistant. So I would make him the AE's assistant. You got to understand that for some time, they're going to perform, as an SDR at a lesser quota. But the good thing about it is they already know your product, they already know your customer, they already know a lot of things about you. If they can learn the AE motions, they can help you grow your AE team much faster, and they'll enable the AE that they're shadowing to also be able to sell more. So that would be my best idea. I think that's all my time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Thank you.